Good day. Here at Brookings Radio, we welcome Brookings School Superintendent Summer Schultz. Dr. Schultz, good to see you once again.
Good to see you.
School board meeting, we're fresh off that, and I guess the main topic was the latest report card from the state, how that affects Brookings and what's happening with scores. And I know it's something you're looking at closely.
It is. Any educational institution, we are accountable to the success of our students in all different areas, and our state tracks certain ones, and we are able to get a scorecard every fall that tells us where we are at as a district, and then we're able to use that to compare to other schools of similar size, that sort of thing, demographics. And so our two curriculum instruction officials last night were able to report the most current one to our board.
And things are up a little from last year, but I think I believe they said that they're treating this year as the baseline, and we need to go up from here.
Right. I think those were my words. And, anytime you have someone new come in and take a look at things, they might attack issues differently. And so when we talk baseline, I believe at Brookings, when we look at our scores and we compare them to the state and we compare them across our conference and that sort of thing, I do believe there is some work that we can do and we need to do, because again, that is what we do at schools, and we want to be able to show the success our students are having.
I thought you made an interesting point, and maybe you can repeat that. Started out that test scores aren't everything, but
yeah, I've never been said to chase test scores, and I haven't, and I never will. But I also believe that when we have high performing students, they also know when it's time to perform, and so. One of the things that we grade students on and schools across the state are those test scores. And so, Brookings should not be at the lower end of the conference. I just don't believe that. And I don't believe what I'm seeing happening in our schools, and what I'm seeing with the amazing staff we have. I think it's a matter of looking at just maybe the timing of things, a specific curriculum and how it relates, and how we're going about some of those things. So I don't believe they necessarily align with some of the great things happening in our district, but we have to be accountable to what those scores are saying and then make steps to change it.
This is the measurement the state is using.
Right.
The whole state is using it. And so you need to figure that out.
Yeah, we do. And our students, again, we know that when we're talking ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics, those are foundational subject matters. Students need to have those, and they need to be very well versed in those. And so we need to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to make sure that at all grade levels, those benchmark levels are being met.
They're tested grades 3 through 8 and 11, correct? For English language, it was 49% proficiency, math, 36% proficiency, science, 43% proficiency for the Brookings School District. When I first looked at those numbers, I thought that seems really low, especially on math. What are your thoughts?
Again, When we're talking about looking at educational institutions, I don't believe anyone in our school would look at, especially that math score and be proud of that. And so there again, maybe it's a timing thing, maybe it's a curriculum thing, because I know there is great things happening, but it is not constituting to high performance on those tests. And so, yes, one of the things that has to happen, and already is from the first day I took over, is I will tell you, we have an administrative team that they are excited about digging in to data and finding out what teachers need to keep moving forward with some of our goals, what students need. So we're just revisiting a little bit different, and we as leaders can only lead them the way we know. And so for me, I'm going to be very adamant about how we approach this and how we look at it. Too much change and systems combust, but yet that that percentage is not something we can pretend isn't there, and it's been a decline over the last 5 years. This wasn't a 1 year thing, unfortunately.
And for sure the pandemic had something to do with that, but that hit all the schools.
Right, it did. And so when you're comparing us to our conference, we have to take out those excuses at some point. Right. And so we are that's why we say this was, ground level. This is where we start. We no longer talk about why they are where they are as far as a blaming. We use that as a way to then improve. And so I promise you we will. I promise you the administrative team and our staff. I just wish people could come on those Wednesdays and look at the great work that's already been happening. And that's not to say it wasn't before. I can only be accountable for what started in July. And I have no doubt that people will start looking at those and going, yep, that's where Brookings should be. And we are really proud of that.
And we should note that the Brookings averages are above the state averages in virtually every case, but below the ESD averages. And so that's obviously a big concern.
Yeah, we want to look at, we look at Brookings community. One of the reasons I wanted to come here as a mom also and as a superintendent is this is a community that puts a lot of pride and a lot of respect and trust in education. You have SDSU, you have Brookings School District. And when you look at how the average of our Brookings School ACT scores, we have high-performing students. We absolutely do. And so, unfortunately, we are looking at this one snapshot. And so it is not an overall indicator of the success and the accomplishments of our students, but it is one we're being graded on, and it is one that we need to assume is important and keep making sure that we are being accountable to that. But we will, and we will continue to make sure that it represents a true picture of the Brookings School District.
And the good news is some of these scores are already improved from last year, so that is good.
Yeah, and I tell you what, the way that I work with my principals, they need to have ways to be able to see what's going on in their classrooms, and their teachers do too. And so that's a little bit different focus than what Brookings has had over the few years as far as those professional development days, because we don't want to wait until next fall when the report card comes out to say, man, there's not growth happening in certain areas. So we're making sure that growth is being tracked so that we can adjust curriculum. We can adjust instructional practices as the year goes on, not wait until next year to say, well, I guess we're going to go up or we're going to go down and it's a chance thing. We aren't going to be doing that.
And I know there's a focus on attendance as well. I think it was board member Deb Debates who said good attendance leads to good performance. And
right.
Attendance 87% is up as well.
Right. When I came for my interview here, I remember seeing that the chronic absenteeism was 28%. And again, in a community like Brookings, that's non-negotiable. We cannot have a chronic absenteeism at 28%. And that had improved with this new report card. So the things that our staff had done last year and put priorities on was working. It absolutely was working. And so we are well on our way to that. But we also just need to make sure that kids want to be at the school building. If missing is harder, we know as professionals often when we miss work, it's harder the next day to come back. Well, every day needs to have high value and high expectations that kids know that they need to be there unless it's something out of their control. So that absenteeism absolutely is something that we're working on and that already is getting better.
I thought one number that looked pretty good to me was high school completion rate, and that is both those who graduate, those who get a GED, those who graduate early. So that kind of includes everyone, and that's at 94%.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at some of the things that are in place and some of the options, I think that's another benefit of the Brookings community is when we look at our Bobcat Plains Academy and we look at, the diversion program even that our county and state's attorney have helped establish. We have things in place. We have safeguards in place for when kids start getting off track. We have multiple people in our community saying, okay, we're going to help get them back. And that helps our community, that helps our school district. But I have seen great collaboration amongst our different partners in the Brookings community to help with that number, not just the school. And so that is a sure sign of a successful community.
You mentioned the Bobcat Plains Academy. We should mention that a little bit because that's been funded with federal ESSER funds, which are running out.
Yeah.
And so you got to find a way to fund that, right?
I do have to find a way to fund that, and we have a large number of positions that have been being paid by ESSER dollars. I believe it's close to $1.5 million. And some of those were in place for a short term to get schools in our specific schools over that hump of, when kids came back with different needs. But some of them are things that we have learned we don't want to live without, and Bobcat Plains Academy is definitely one of them. And so we have to start getting creative, and we're looking for alternative funding methods, whether that be grants, whether that be public and community collaborations, partnerships. So, those people listening to the radio show, if they have some ideas for me on a collaboration or, alternative funding too, we're looking at all the possible ways to do that.
And the county even gave some money, which was great, but I don't know if they can keep doing that.
Right.
Either.
I think we're all now just at the legislative coffee this morning. I think, we sometimes talk about revenues and outlooks for next year as dropping, but the reality is we're probably getting back to more of what the normal was. We had a new normal for a few years with some additional funding mechanisms, and those do go away. And now we have to get back to where we were with, just steady growth. But
maybe 2 or 3% increase
exactly,
each year from the state.
Exactly. And so I think we'll all have to get back to the way that was. But the opportunities we had to get through a really difficult time, we took good advantage of it. This community, this school district, I feel what they used that money for was great, because it's hard to live without it. And that's a sure indicator that the school board,
spent it the right way.
Administration during the last 3 years spent it the right way. That's a great sign.
We're out of time. That went really quick. Dr. Schultz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Summer Schultz, Brookings School Superintendent, right here at Brookings Radio.